Boker Tov, Chodesh Tov, Mishanichnas Adar Marvin B'Simcha. Today is the first day of Adar. And we begin today's daf with today's daf is Daf Lamed. We begin from the Mishnah where we left off yesterday. We've learned this Mishnah before a few days ago. We had it in the Gemara. Ha'ish megalech on Nizir Savav. There's a special halacha, we'll see it's halacha Moshe Sinai, that if a father had been a Nazir and he died, he set aside unspecified money for his karbanot, and then he died. Can the son say, look, I also want to be a Nazir, I'll use Pop's money for my karbanos? Can he do that? So the Mishnah says, if a man can do that, the son can do that for the Nazirs of his father. If his father set aside unspecified money and died, but a woman can't. Only a man can do that, but a woman, she doesn't have the rights to use her father's money for her Naziris if she decides to be a Nazir. We'll see why. It's halacha Moshe Sinai. Ketzad, what are we talking about? What's the case here? Where his father was a Nazir and then he became a Nazir. Was he a Nazir simultaneously with his father or not? So the way the Mishnah reads is as follows. Mishayav of Nazir's father was a Nazir, and he set aside, the father set aside unspecified money for the Kabbalah on the zero. So Umeis, the father then died. But then the son said, Hareini Nazir al Manas, Shagalech Hamas Abba. I'll be a Nazir on the condition that I can use my father's money for the karbanos. He set aside the money anyway. Why should it go to waste? I never wanted to be a Nazir because, they bring the karbanos. It's expensive. It's an expensive proposition. You got to buy other drinks. You can't drink wine, which was very, what's the word that they use? It's a biquis all over the place. Everybody had wine in those days, biquis. So here, I didn't want to spend the money, and I got to buy karbanos. Oh, but my father left the money over. Okay, so I'll use that money for the karbanos. So right now, I'm also in the condition I can use my father's money for the karbanos. I'm Rav Yossi. Notice this is Rav Yossi. We're going to talk about that in the Gemara. Can't use that money because the father died. And once the father died, the rule is the money's got to go for an adava, meaning it goes to the Beis Hamikdash. All the money left. You can't use that money. However, the money goes for an adava, and you cannot use it. The Mishnah started by saying that you could use your father's money, right? What's the example? And he gives an example first of where you cannot. He goes says you can't use that money. And what's the case where you could use your father's money for your Naziris? If Nazir Sava, Misha Yehuvav of Nazirim, they were both Nazirim simultaneously. He was a Nazir together with his father, and then his father Hifrish of most, when his father set aside unspecified money Zeruso, Umeis, and then the father died. He could use his father's money because he was a Nazir at the same time. That's how our Mishnah reads, and that's Rav Yossi's opinion. We're going to see other ways to learn in the Gemara. But first, the Gemara says, what's this business if a son could use his father's money if his father was a Nazir? The son could use his father's money for his, but not a daughter. I mean, we learned that both a man and a woman could each become a Nazir. What's the difference? My time, why can't the woman? Only a son could do it, not the father, not the daughter, only a son. Okay, because it's halacha Moshe Sinai. Okay, and you can't learn anything from there, right? That's the Masarbia Denu Ben Velo Bas. So the Gemara says Pshita. Obviously, a son. We know if there's a son and a daughter, who gets the Yerusha? The son, right? So what happened over here? The father set aside money for the karbanos, right? And now the father dies. Well, we know who gets the Yerusha if there's a son and a daughter.
It's already set aside.
So maybe
she could.
Maybe she could. Very good.
If the father and the daughter were the zero at the same time.
Maybe she could. Right? Maybe it's not because of Yerusha. Very good. So the Gemara first says Pshita that the son would do it because when there's a daughter and the son gets everything. So what do I need a halacha Moshe Sinai? Isn't it because of Yerusha? My lememra, the ben Yoresh is Aviv Baslo. What do you teach me? That is it because of Yerusha? And you teach me that if there's a son and a daughter, the son gets the Yerusha and the daughter doesn't? Isn't that obvious? If it's Yerusha based on that, not necessarily because of that. Let's say he only has a daughter. Even because of Yerusha, when doesn't a daughter inherit anything? When there are no sons. But if when there are sons, then she doesn't get anything. But if there are no sons, then she inherits like Benos Slavchad, right? There were 5 daughters. They inherit, right? He only got a daughter. So if you got a daughter, so even if you say the rule is because of Yerusha, right? Even if you say it's because of Yerusha, okay, there are cases when she's the Yoreshet. Let's say there is no son, there are no sons, and she's an only daughter, and she wants to get it. Why not? Now the same Yorshin Gemirila. I might think that the rule over here is because of Yorshin, that the reason why you could use your father's money for your Naziris when he set it aside is because of Yerusha. So it doesn't make any difference if it's a son or daughter. Yeah, if it's a son, if there's a son and a daughter, okay, the son maybe has priority because he's the Orish. But if there's no son, then maybe the daughter will get it. Kamash Mallah, no. It's ha'alocha. Alocha mash misina ben globaz. Like you say, it has nothing to do with Yerusha. It's not because of Yerusha. It's because that's the halacha mash misina, that a son could do it, not the father. We had several halachas mash misina here, right? Remember that the money goes for the dava, even though there's other money mixed in there. We had the fact that, what did Rabbi Yochanan say, that the father could make his son a Nazir up until the age of 13 or up until the age of 12, where halacha mash misina, right? He had that opinion. So there's halacha mash misina. There's no svara for it. It's not because of the din of Yerusha. Now we're going to talk about, yes, but there is Yerusha. Let's say there are several sons. We're going to talk about that soon. But it's not because of Yerusha. Yeah. Why isn't it what? Because of Yerusha? That's what God told us. God said that's the rule. No reason for it. What's the reason for Yerusha? That's another thing. That's the Torah gave us those rules. Why does the son come before the daughter? Whatever. Those are the rules in the Torah. It's not based on the Svara. The Torah set those rules. Not everything is logical. Right? Not everything is logical when it comes to Allah. Yerusha is Yerusha. Right. But you could argue over here that the money is already sanctified. He set aside money for the Kabbanos. So you could be Yoresh what is his, what's in his bank account, what belongs to him. But once he set it aside for Kabbanos, it's not his anymore. It belongs to Hektish. So you could argue that too. It's not necessarily it said therefore it doesn't go into the Yerusha. He'll have the estate will contain all the other assets that the father owned personally, and the son can get that, right? But as far as a Yerusha, and again, let's say there are no sons. So there's only a daughter. Why shouldn't she be able to do it? She's not able to do it, even though she is the only heir. She'll inherit all his assets, but she can't use that money for her naziris because that's halachim b'sina. Iboilu. The first question is, we said our mission is Amar Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says, here's the rule. Amar Rabbi Yossi, if his father's naziris preceded his and his father died while he was a nazir, he can't do it. He can't use his father's money. If they were nazir at the same time, then he can. So the question is, the Rabbanan disagree with Rabbi Yossi or lo pligi? Or do they not argue? If they do argue, a reisha or seifa, are they arguing on the reisha? In other words, do they all, they say that even in the first case where the father died first, the father was a Nazir first and he died whilst he was a Nazir, and then the son said, I'll use his money, they argue with that also. And they say that you could use it then. Or do they argue on the seifa? Or maybe they argue on both. In other words, maybe they say the verse, Tashma, let's bring a proof from here. Ketzad. Now listen very carefully. The way our Gemara reads, it's the opposite of our Mishnah. Ketzad Amru, or the Gear says, Amosai Amru Ha'ish Megalech on Nazir. So when do you say that a son could use his father's money for his Kabbalas? Misha Yav Nazir, father's Nazir, and the father set aside money, is Russo. Umeis, and he died, and the son said, I'll become a Nazir on the condition I can use my father's money. There he could use it. It's exactly opposite from our Mishnah. Aval Misha Yahuv and Nazira, and if they were both Nazir at the same time, father and son. The Hefishav of Moses, just the father set aside money umeis. So first of all, you see over here, this is the reverse of what we had in our Mishnah. So Tosfos has this girsa, and Rashi doesn't. Take a look on Rashi, 5 lines down in the narrow lines in Rashi. Hachi Garsina, you see that? Hey Gimel, Tashma, Ketzad Amroish Megalech Nesaviv, and he reads it like our Mishnah. Misha Yehuva of Nazirim, if they are in Zim at the same time, this case is mentioned first, and the Mishnah was mentioned second. Misha Hayu, the father was a Nazir, and he set aside money, and then the father died, and then the son said, so he has the girsa like our Mishnah. But then the Gemara goes on. Rav Elazar, Rav Meir, Rav Yehuda Amru, Zeu shemagleich al mitzvahs al merzim. This is the case where he's magleich zav aviv. Which is that? This last case. In other words, the Rabbanan disagree with Rabbi Yossi. According to the way Rashi learns, according to Tosas and Rambam and others, they say, you know what? The Rabbanan, these other rabbis, they disagree with Rabbi Yossi totally. They say it makes no difference. Whether the father was a Nazir first, set aside money, died, and then the son said, I'll be a Nazir on the condition I could use his money for my kabbalas, or whether they were both Nazirim at the same time and then set aside money and the father died, the son could use the money. Either way, he can use their money. Either way it works, according to the way most Rishonim learn. But the way Rashi learns, let's go on in Rashi where we left off. Klomar, says Rashi. I'm reading Rashi. Since he says this Brisa, this is the one Megaleach. Alma, the Aresha simply argues in both cases. Where can Zav? Where his father was a Nazir first, and then he died, and then he said, I'll be a Nazir on the condition I could use his money. He was a Nazir together with his father while his father was alive. He was already chayav b'karban So according to we're saying that the way Rashi learns, the rabbis disagree with Rabbi Yossi in both cases. They say if his father was a Nazir first, and he set aside money for the kabbalas, and then he died, the son takes his place, can use the money. He says, I can be a Nazir and use his father's money. But if he was a Nazir together with his father, he had his own responsibility, his own obligation to bring his own kabbalas. Now he can't use his father's anymore. So the way Rashi learns, so we have many different opinions here. We have the way our Mishnah reads. The Rabbi Yossi says, and the way Rashi learns in the Brisa also, Rabbi Yossi says that when they are separate, he cannot use the money, but when they were together, this father and son were together, he could use the money for that. And the rabbis disagree, according to Rashi, the opposite. They say when he was together with his father and Nazir, he cannot use the money because he had his own obligation. When his father was a Nazir first and died and had set aside money, then he could. That's how the rabbis learn according to Rashi. According to Tosafos and the others, the other rabbis disagree in both cases and say that either way he could use his father's money. That's halach l'mosh misinai, and we paskin like those chachamim. Okay, boy Rabbah, back in the Gemara, 10 lines down on Lamed Abedez in the Gemara. Boy Rabbah, Yesh lo shnei banim Nazir. Let's say he's got 2 sons. This is all nice and simple, and we say according to the rabbis, he could take over his father. Let's say he's got 2 sons. What do you say there? Mao, what's the halacha? Hilchos Gemir. We said it's halacha l'mosh misinai. There is no svara for it, right? Halacha l'mosh misinai. It's halacha l'mosh misinai that the five chatos mesas. We say that there is a rule of tsar balachayim. You're not allowed to make animals suffer. Yet we say that if there's a chatas animal whose owner died or had a kapara already, right? Or you have to let it die. You kill it. So how does that make sense? You starve it to death, not like shchita. So there's a lot of things that don't make sense. So what's the halacha mishmiyah where he has 2 sons? My hilchos gemir law called the kadim. Whoever gets there first, called the kadim megaleach. Whoever decides, let's say he's got 2 sons. So what's the rule? Whichever son, the father died, father was a Nazir, right? And set aside money, then he died. And then the son said, according to the rabbis for sure, that he says, I want to be a Nazir, I'm a Nazir, I can use my father's money, he's allowed to. So which are the sons? Whichever son became a Nazir first, whoever son I'm going to be a Nazir first, that one. Called the kadim, whoever is first, called the kadim megaleach. Odilma, the extra galech is missing there. Migalech should be how it reads. It's the way Bach reads it. Called the Zachem Migalech. Odilma, Yerusha Gemirullah. Maybe it's like Yerusha, even though we said before it's not a Yerusha, because girls, if it's based on Yerusha, if the girl was the only heir, she should be able to use that money. But still, it's like a Yerusha. Maybe in this sense, it's not 100% Yerusha, but it's similar to Yerusha because the sons get it. But let's say there's more than one son. Is it like a Yerusha? And therefore, if there's 2 sons of Palgabi, you split it. You don't say whichever one was there first. You could say, listen, they're both entitled. If they both want to be Nazirim, Shnei Banam Nazirim, maybe they split it. Or let's say they were both Nazirim, even according to Rav Yossi, if they were both Nazirim at the same time, both sons were Nazirim at the same time as the father. father set aside the money and the father died. So who gets it first? The one who said, I'm going to be a Nazir first, the one who was there first, or do they split it? Boy, Rav, another question. Even if you say they split it, Bechor Pashut, let's say one was a Bechor with the two sons, Reuben and Shimon. One was a Bechor, one was a Pashut, a non-Bechor. What's the rule when there's a Bechor and a Pashut? How does the Yerusha work? The Bechor gets 2/3, the other one gets 1/3. You always add one, take the number of children, add one, and
That's a Yerusha.
Oh, that's Yerusha. So that's the question. Is Yerusha involved in this too? Yes, it's not a straight Yerusha because the daughter gets nothing, even if she's the only daughter, right? Even if she's the only heir. But is it like that? Boy, if you say that it's somehow based on Yerusha too, it's not the rules of Yerusha. The halacha must be seen is when it comes to Naziris, the Yerusha works in this way. Not that the first one gets it, but if there's two sons and they're both Nazirim, they split it. Well, what happens if there's a Bechor and a Pashut? Do you say we take all the rules of Bechor there too? My hilchzik mir law, the hilkach lo boy glucha from my deshakol. It's halacha mishmi sinai. It's a special. It's not really based on regular Yerusha. It's halacha mishmi sinai. The son can take over the father's money for his naziris, and it's not based on the real Yerusha, so it doesn't go according to what he takes. But when it comes to the Yerusha, the Bechor gets 2/3 and the other one gets 1/3. We don't say that over here too. But don't forget, what are we talking? We're talking about money. We're not talking about whether the father left over animals. If left over animals and he died, we had that rule before. The chatas you let die, and the olin shlom you bring. Here we're talking about he left over unspecified money, and they're going to use that money for their korbanos. So if one of the two sons, if you say that the two sons split it, if one of the sons is a Bechor, does he get 2/3? Or do you say no? It's halacha mashmi sinai that the Nazirim sons can take over the fathers. It's not really Nazir. It's not really a regular rule of Yerusha, and he doesn't take according to what he doesn't get the money from the animals for the money that was set aside. Doesn't take it according to the rules of Yerusha. The Yerusha gets 2/3. Here he doesn't. No Dilma Yerusha. It's still like Yerusha. Just like he gets a double share. So he also gets a double share in the animals, in the money that's going to be used for the animals. If you say it's somewhat of a Yerusha, and he gets according to that, he takes money for these. Let's say the father set aside $1,000, so he gets $667 for his korbanos. According to that, maybe that's only uvechulin who dislike while the money is still chulin. He set aside the money, but he wasn't really makdish it yet, right? Maybe he only gets that in chulin, meaning before they actually brought it as a carbon. Chulin dislike. But hegdish, what does that mean? Aval hegdish, after they brought the karbanos, aval hegdish lo. Rashi says over here, aval hegdish la'achar shenikar v'karban and v'akshaloch. They want to eat it because you eat what do they eat? They have a chatas on shlom. They eat the shlomim. Shenikar v'karban v'akshaloch lo shakol b'shnayim elchol k'minei mishava. Maybe even though you say what this money that he set aside, it's holy money to some degree, but it's really only kedushas dama. He hasn't yet made it into animals. So lefum deshakel megaleach. Do you say that if he gets a double share, he gets a double share in the money too? But that's maybe as long as it hasn't been transferred into animals. It's still just kedushas dama. You set aside the money to be used for korbanos. But you didn't say what money is what, which is what. You didn't say this is chatas money, this is shlum. If you did that, then the money would actually have the rules of the animals. Here, he just set aside the money in general. So right now, it's still like chulin. Maybe there he gets a double share of the hektish lo. And Rashi says it means after they brought the korbanos, right? After they brought the korbanos, and you say that the Bechor got a double share, right? Got a double share. He got a double share of the money. So his korbanos, let's say his korbanos had more of his father's money than the brothers' korbanos. But now that you're eating it, maybe when it comes to eating it, it's hektish. It's hegdish. You don't say double share then, and maybe there you split it evenly. When it comes to splitting up the meat, you split it up evenly. So once he acquired it for bringing his korbanos, loshna, there's no difference. It doesn't make any difference. If he gets a double share, he gets a double share throughout. Here's another question. Of Nazir Olam, who Nazir Stam? Let's say the father was a Nazir Olam, different kind of a Nazir. We had before, Nazir Olam is going to be a Nazir his whole life. Remember, he can shave from time to time, but he can't drink wine. Right? Aviv Nazir Olam Bahu Nazir Stam, and he's a regular Nazir, 30-day Nazir, or the other way around. Aviv Nazir Stam, Hu Nazir Olam. He's do the same rules apply? Mike, Kigamir and Hilchasa, the Stam Naziris. Maybe Lacha Mashmisina is only when they're both Stam Naziris. Odim Meloshner makes no difference. Lacha Mashmisina is here. So even though it's Lacha Mashmisina, there are many details that we don't know. Is it like Yerusha to some degree or is it not? Is it, if it is like some degree, how far does it go? Is it like even with the before? Is it if they're both only if they're both regular Nazir, but if one's a Nazir Olam, maybe it doesn't apply? Imtim Slomer. Okay, in the case of Nazir, a regular Nazir or a Nazir Olam, we're talking about the father set aside karbanos, the chatas ol nishlam that he brings for Nazir Taro, and he finishes his regular Naziris. Right? And now he finished it in a state of purity, and he brings those karbanos. What about Rav Ashi of Nazir Tamei? Let's say the father died whilst he was a Nazir Tamei, meaning what does that mean? He was a Nazir, he became Tamei Lameis, somebody died on him or he touched a dead body, whatever, he's in the room with a dead body. Now he had observed 7 days of power, and then he set aside karbanos, the 2 birds and the osham, and he set those aside. So what about the birds? Ravashi of Nazir Tamei, Behu Nazir Tar. Can that money that the father set aside for the birds be used now by the sons also? Behu Nazir Tar, he's just a regular Nazir. Or of Nazir Tar, Behu Nazir Tamei, and he's Nazir. Can he use his father's money for the karbanos of Nazir Tamei? All these questions stand. Teku. That's how we end off this parak. Hanlach Misha Amar. So all these questions stand. So we have a Lacha Mishmi that a son can take over his father's unspecified money for his karbanos. We have Machlokas Rabbi Yossi and Rabbanan. According to Rabbanan, apparently the way most Rishonim learn, not like Zali Rashi, but that whether he was a Nazir together with his father or a Nazir after his father, either way he can use the money. But what happens if there are multiple brothers, one's a Bechor, etc.? All these questions we don't have an answer to. Hanlach Mishamar.
Another Olam, what do you use for bonus? It's going to be another forever.
No, so he said forever, but when he shaved, right. But we said, remember when we said Hichbedel of Saro, let's say his hair got too long and he had to shave at that point, then he brings karbanos. And then he starts, and then he continues his Naziris again, because, assuming he wasn't Tamei, right? So he has to be no exist, but if his hair got too long, he's allowed to, right? But no, the Shimshon is never allowed to cut his hair. He's got to go along, forever and ever. He's never allowed to cut his hair, right? He could drink wine, but he get better. Another Olam cannot drink wine, but he can cut his hair. But when he cuts his hair, he has to be Karbanos, because that ends it. It's like a intermission of his Naziris. So we talked in the Durham, we learned that if a person has to be very clear about his netter. If it's not clear or he made a mistake, remember he made a mistake, we thought one circuit, then Nidra Shogi and Nidra Bai. If he said something far out, like I saw, I owe you $1 million if I didn't see a horse flying over here. He just said some crazy thing or an exaggeration or a mistake. He made it by mistake. It's not considered a netter. Okay, what about by Naziris? Naziris, we're going to see it's pretty much the same thing. But first, we're going to start off by saying Hegdish and Nazir are similar. Right? In both cases, they're kinds of Nadar when you're Makdish something. And the question is, if you did it by mistake, is that considered a Naziris or a Hegdish? So first, we're going to deal with the Hegdish to do the basic Machlokas or the Shitas here we have is by Hegdish. And we start off with Hegdish, and then we're going to go into Naziris. So Beshami Machlokas Beshami Sil Beshami Hegdish Betos Hegdish. If you made something Hegdish by mistake, it's still Hegdish, even though you made a mistake. What do we mean by that? We'll see an example. Beisilom and Hegdish. Hill says no. If you did it by mistake, it's not Hegdish. I'm saying, Ketsa, what's an example? There's really like 2 Mishnayos over here. The first example is by a real animal that Kedushas Aguf. You're giving an animal to the base of Mikdash as a carbon. The other example would be by Kedushas Damim. But the same thing applies. We're talking about Hegdish. Is Hegdish Betos, is it Hegdish or not? Beishamai says it is. Hegdish Betos is Hegdish. Beisil says ain't a Hegdish. Ketsa, what's an example? Amar Shor Shachar Shietzim Beis Rishon. Man says, whichever, it says the first black bull that comes out of my house, I want that to be a carbon. I'm being makdish it, the first black bull that comes out of my house. V'yatsa Lovin. And what came out first? A white bull. So Beishamai says it's Hegdish, right? Because he meant to say the first one, right? He said the first black bull that comes out. So what's the understanding? Beishamai says it's Hegdish, even though you made a mistake. You thought it was going to be a black one, but it came out a white one. Okay, but you made a mistake. Why? Because you really meant the first one that comes out of your house. You thought it's going to be black, but you said black. So even though you made a mistake in your mind because you thought it's going to be black, but you really meant the first one, and therefore it's Hegdish. Hegdish Betos is Hegdish. Now, we'll see, is that really a mistake? if you really meant the first one, so it's not a mistake, you meant the first one, except you weren't clear in your lashon, right? So we'll see what happens. Now, also, the first one that came out is white one. Is the white one hegdish? V'yatzalav and Beishami hegdish. That the pashup shot is that the white one came out first. The white one's hegdish. We'll see another opinion of the Gemara. Rashi brings it down to Bilish Nachrina. Okay, when we say it's hegdish, not that the white one's hegdish, but the first black one that follows the white one, whichever black one comes out first, eventually that is hegdish. That's what he means. That could be the pshat in Beis Shammai, but we'll see. The pashup shot is no. That I said, what did I say? I said the first black bull that comes out of my house, Shor Shachar, the first black bull that comes out of my house, Sheetz Mes Rishon is hegdish, and a white one came out. That the white one's hegdish. Beis Hillel ain't hegdish. It's not hegdish. It's made a mistake. You thought a black one's going to come out, a white one comes out, a mistake. Similarly, Din of Zav Shi'ala B'Yad Rishon. I'm putting my hand into my money bag, and the first golden coin that comes out will be hegdish. I'm giving it to Beis Mikdash. The first one came out was silver, wasn't gold. The Shami says it's hegdish anyway, even though you made a mistake. It's still hegdish. Beis Hillel ain't hegdish. It's not hegdish. Similarly, Chavas Shayayin Shel B'Yad Rishon. I got a bunch of barrels of your wine and oil and vinegar and all kinds of stuff. And I said the first barrel of wine or the jug of wine that comes out first from whichever I reach into, the first jug of wine that comes out first, right, is hegdish. I'm going to give it for libations in the base of Mikdash. But also shel shemen, the first one that came out was oil. Beis Shammai says hegdish, Beis Hillel ain't a hegdish. So Beis Hillel said the machlokas here, the basic machlokas is hegdish betos, is it hegdish or not? And we have this machlokas throughout Shas. We'll see, we have this machlokas elsewhere. Let's just see a little piece of the Gemara. Beis Shammai omrim, hegdish, my tomato Beis Shammai. What's Beis Shammai's reasoning? The alfina and tchilas hegdish misof hegdish. Over here in all these cases, you're making something hegdish for the first time. What's a case where you're making something hegdish not for the first time? Tmura, the famous case where you do an exchange. I have an animal over here, A, and I say, you know what, I'd like B to take the place of A. B looks nicer, stronger, healthier. It's a better look when I like the B to take the place of A. You're not supposed to do that. It says lo yachli fenav lo yamir also. But if you did it, if you did it, they're both kadosh. That's the rule. I want B to take the place of A. A and B are both kadosh. Even though, let's say I say, Harezu, I wanted to make it an Ola. Harezu, I want B to be the Tmura of A as an Ola. And I said, by mistake, I said it about Shlomo. I said, I want B to take the place of C, which is a different animal. So there it does work. There, because even though I said it by mistake, it works. So Beis Shammai's reasoning is the same thing over here. Here where I'm making something hegdish for the first. It'll be so hegdish. From Tmura, by Tmura, it's so hegdish because you already have something else which is kadosh first. I already have A or C, and I'm making B like them. Ma Tmura, feel betos, specify Tmura, even if I mistake, it's still kadosh. Av hegdish also feel betos. That's Beis Shammai's reasoning. Beis Hillel says no. Hanimile Tmura, that's by Tmura because you already have something which is kadosh. I already have A which is kadosh. So if I said B is like A or B is like C, I have other animals which are kadosh already. There it works because I already have something kadosh. There you could say that hegdish betos is hegdish. Avalachu say hegdish betos, but to construct hegdish for the first time, to make it to start it, to make hegdish go down on this animal. In other words, to commence hegdish on this animal, lo machsin, we don't do that. In other words, Beis Hillel says hegdish betos is not hegdish, and Beis Shammai says hegdish betos is hegdish. Okay, so the Gemara says, well, the Beis Shammai, according to Beis Shammai, I understand. You say you learn it based on Tmura, where you said this takes the place of that. But if I said this takes the place of that lachatzi ayom at noontime later on, I want it to be miyavi Tmura. Is a Tmura me'ishata? Is it a Tmura only at right away? It's not a Tmura right away. If I said that I want it to be a Tmura at chatzi ayom at noon, is it a Tmura from right now? It's not. It's only when you do it. Ela adamati chatzi ayom hudav Tmura. When noon comes around, then it's a Tmura. It's not none. So here also, when it comes out, he said, what did he say? He said, when the black bull comes out first, I want it to be a hegdish animal. Okay, but the black bull didn't come out first. The white one came out first. So what do you say? It's a mistake. Beis Shammai learns it out of Tmura. But by Tmura also, it's only when he said this is for this right now. If he said I want it to be at noontime, I want B to take the place of A. And noontime hasn't come yet, so it hasn't yet happened. So it's not a Tmura yet. So here also, the black bull hasn't come out yet. right? You said when the black bull comes out first, I want it to be a hegdish. When the white one comes out, so why should the white one be hegdish? The white one, he said the black one comes out first, and the white one comes first. So when the black one comes in, maybe there's a green and a brown and a yellow, shore also coming out. When the black one comes out, maybe that's when it should be cut. So even if Beis Shammai says hegdish b'tos is hegdish based on tmura, but still it's got to be this is for that, right? So the same thing that if I say that it's going to be a tmura later on, it's not a tmura right now. So if I say also when the black one comes out, when the first black one comes out, then it should be kadosh. So why should the white one be kadosh? So that's what the Gemara asks. And Rav Papa is going to learn of Rav Papa the kachnem rishon the ksheyetze rishon. And Rav Papa learns this whole Gemara different. Rav says no, not that the white one becomes kadosh. It means remember rishon the first like ksheyetze rishon. It means to say if it comes out first or when it comes out first, like ksheyetze rishon, when it comes out first. Then we'll talk and say, I got other ones. I got other black ones. The first black one that comes out, in other words, Rav Papa wants to say, when the Mishnah says, Beis Shammai says, hegdish b'tos is hegdish in that case, when he said, what did he say? He said, the black bull that comes out first will be hegdish. Doesn't mean that the white one, and then the white one came out first, doesn't mean that the white one comes out first, which is what our Pasha understanding of the Mishnah is. The white one came out first, he made a mistake. He thought it's going to be a black one, but he really meant the white one. Rav Papa says, you're right. He doesn't mean that. Just like in the case of Tamur, I say, I want it to be a Tamur at noon, it's only then. Here also, when the first black one comes out first, that will be the hegdish one. So the Gemara is going to go on and ask questions about this until we come out at the end of the Gemara, not like Rav Papa, but that's Rav Papa Shita. So this is what we'll pick it up here for tomorrow. Mr. Shem, Chodesh Tov L'Kulam.